great weight to it. If you're going to get something that's just going to be nothing but fun, what would you rent?
Nothing but fun. I'd probably rent, God, what was the name of it? Oh, Airplane. Good, give me a second to think of this movie.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful movie.
Okay, you ready? Okay, one that's just for fun.
Just for fun would have to be Dracula Dead and Loving It, starring Leslie Nielsen.
We're back to Dracula.
Yeah, and it's a parody of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it is hysterical to me. I can laugh at anything. I'm very, very silly. I love to laugh, and that movie is just great.
You know, you can go to a video store now and rent music videos. Ricky Martin's out with his collection. Madonna's with her collection. Mariah with her collection. Would you rent them, or is it to a point to where you've seen them so much on TV that it's like, I don't think I'd
probably rent them. I mean, to see someone's collection is actually cool. Like to rent Janet's video or Michael and just go back and see all those hits from back in the day that you loved. It would actually be a lot of fun.
What was it like growing up? Because you are a very self-assured woman.
Thank you. Growing up for me, everything was based on entertainment. Come from a family that's always been involved in this business, and I went to Catholic school, went to Performing Arts High School where I majored in dance, but took drama and music. So, but I was always grounded. My parents made sure I had everything that a child has. I went to parties, I went to my prom, I did all those sort of things. So they kept me real when I came home, and then I went into my fantasy world when I went out and traveled and did videos and all of that. I had a great childhood.
Is it more than you thought it would be at this time? Is it exactly where you thought it would be at this time of your life? Another plane. You can think on that one.
Okay, we're clear.
How old are you?
Just made 20.
In this interview, I can't really tell whether Aaliyah was just nervous of planes when she was hearing them, or she was frightened of planes, or what exactly was going on with Aaliyah when she sat down and did this interview. And this interview was done a year before she died. And you can hear the engine on the plane, on the first plane, and then the second plane. That's why I think this clip is very important. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am really excited to do this video, and let me tell you why. We're going to be talking about someone that, I grew up listening to as a child, who unfortunately passed away when I was in high school. Was a one-of-a-kind artist. Aaliyah was born January 16th of 1979, and she died in an airplane crash on August 25th of 2001 in the Bahamas after she was done shooting Rock the Boat. Aaliyah was only 22 years old, very young. And so for me, and I know women that were young around that time, Aaliyah was really a trendsetter. She was somebody that, we really looked up to. To me, she was up there like Selena, very much unique in her style and her personality, and just someone that looked like someone that you could definitely tell had a very genuine soul. I remember in high school, I had an Aaliyah poster on my locker, so she was definitely one of my fave artists at that time. And even when you listen to her music now, so many years after her death, you understand that Aaliyah was so futuristic in her artistry. There's something about the music. Aaliyah's music is so eternal, like it hasn't aged out whatsoever. But I also feel like Aaliyah is a victim of the industry because in her young age, she fell victim to Rkelly. It's sad to me to see that when we bring our Aaliyah up, it's a lot of people will bring Rkelly, and unfortunately, Rkelly is that shadow that follows the story of Aaliyah. Not every aspect, but some of it. But I think, in my opinion, this is what made Aaliyah a victim of the industry. That people weren't protecting Aaliyah, as a child, and allowed her to be exploited and used and assaulted by this man. For those that don't know, Aaliyah was named Jane Doe #1 in the Rkelly indictment. Okay. And back in 2021, when Rkelly was facing trial, there was so much happening around that time. And this is why I think it's important to talk about this video and review and put together the different clips and things that I was able to find. Okay, let me take you to 2021. 2021, Rkelly is facing trial for his RICO charge. Leah's death anniversary was approaching, in August. She died August 25th. And this was around the same time that the trial was happening, okay? Then you had an author by the name of Kathy Ayandoli. Kathy Ayandoli, who was a journalist who worked in advice and worked at other media companies. You know, she comes and she decides to write a book by the name of Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah. At the time that she was releasing the book, you also had the Rkelly trial happening, and it was also her 20th year passing. It would have been her 20th year of passing. And so, what Kathy did as an author, she decides to write this book that was really filled with a lot of speculations, which is fine. Anybody can do that. But she decides to quote a person by the name of Kingsley Russell, who said that he witnessed Aaliyah taking a pill before she boarded the plane in the Bahamas, and that she was basically dragged to this plane. And so, of course, after that, it caused a lot of chaos and commotion on social media. That author got dragged, and then she tried to backpedal from the things that she was saying. My channel got struck because I was able to find this internet clip where that young gentleman said what he said, and we will be playing it here. Absolutely.
When Aaliyah came to our country, she had a certain taxi driver, my stepmother, Louise McIntosh. All right? That was her taxi driver. And I used to do baggage, carrying the bags for people at the airport. Man, Aaliyah is an awesome person. But that incident that day, she didn't want none of it. She didn't even want to get on the plane. I remember it clearly. The thing is, she had a major headache. And she was on the phone with her boyfriend at one point. She told him that she didn't want to get on. I heard the conversation, but it's like not all of it, but I knew she didn't want to get on the airplane because the whole weight situation. Everyone in the airport was saying the same thing, but no, the people that was with her was consistent on getting on the fucking airplane. Aaliyah went and took a nap for 30 minutes. Whoever her people were that was with her, her entourage or her managers or whatever, they gave her some pills. She passed out in the back seat of the van. The next time Aaliyah woke up was when it was time to board the plane, bro. Everyone on that island went out there to go look for that airplane, bro, because we knew it was too much weight on that little ass plane. And whoever made her get on that plane, bro.
So what I wanted to do in this video is bring what happened in 2021 to present time as it pertains to Aaliyah. Like I said, it's very hard when you talk about Aaliyah, people are going to bring up Rkelly. Hell, even right now, you have Rkelly's daughter speaking out against him many years regarding some abuse that happened. And I will say, it's sad to see how this monster was even, offending against his own children. That just should tell you how sick Rkelly really is. And I'm glad that he is where he's at currently. Now, a couple things. I want you guys to know that I wasn't showing my face a lot in 2021. So you're going to see a little rabbit avatar. I am now showing my face, okay? So just note that. I was doing more of a podcast type of channel back then, but I have since clearly decided to show my face. But I want to say something. You're going to hear me say various names that if you don't really know the ins and outs of the Aaliyah story, some of these names are going to be like, who is this person? Who is this person? Some of the names that you guys have to remember is Hype Williams, okay? Hype Williams, Barry Hankerson, Fatima, the dance choreographer, and Nadine Ellis, another dancer. These are names that are going to come up in this video. Of course, Jaguar Wright is going to come up there because she inserted herself in this situation. She is always in every, story as it pertains to tragedy. Like, she's always there. I don't know how. She's like Waldo. Let's get started. This is one of the articles that was printed locally, that on August 25th, there was a terrible accident at the Marsh Harbor International Airport. A twin engine and I think you would say that as Senna 402B, carrying the popular singer Aaliyah, and 7 of her crew crashed on takeoff, claiming the lives of the pilot and all 8 passengers. Now, the total people that died was 9. Okay, there were 9 deaths. So just so you guys know, they also talked about the song that was they were recording the music video for, which we all know it's Rock the Boat. This is the crazy part. It says there is no indication that any of the luggage was weighted before it was loaded on the plane. And there are varying reports of arguments between Aaliyah and her entourage and the pilot overheard by baggage handlers at the airport. All right, so in any case, the plane took off from the runway at around 6:50 p.m. and crashed immediately after takeoff. What I like about this article, and I'll tell you guys, is that they actually show us a map of the accident, like where they found the victims, where they found like the wreckage, where they found everything. It says that the wreckage was removed from the swamp and transported to Abaco Air Hangarman for initial analysis. At a press conference August 30th, the investigators announced that they had not yet been able to find any evidence that either of the engines failed, a statement which goes contrary to reports, crash test abilities of emergency crew. So here, look at this. This little side right here, we have the pond, okay? Scattered pine trees right over here, approximate path of aircraft, approximate location of injured bodies, extent of burn area, wreckage, plan courtesy of Keys Architectural Design. Site plan of the crash site shows the western end of the runway and the close proximity of the downed plane about 200 feet from the edge of the cleared area. They even drew the rescue vehicles, guys, and the west end of the runway up on this area. And then in there it says, it finishes up the sentence, the scene that left the engine had made a funny noise before taking off. So I thought that was an interesting piece of information, because when you read the articles now about the engine and the airplane, I don't remember reading that it made a funny noise. Like, did anybody hear the engine make a funny noise before taking off? And I'm just thinking in my mind why that's relevant is because if it's making a funny noise, could we have stopped it from leaving the runway? Right? Could there have been something that would have been like, listen, you need to get your engine checked. Something's going on. There's a funny noise. Everybody can hear it. I don't know. The investigators did, however, release figures which indicate that the aircraft was overweight. The basic operation weight of the aircraft without ratios is 4,117 pounds. The maximum allowed takeoff weight of the airplane is 6,300. Means that it can accommodate 2,183 pounds of passenger, fuel, oil, and cargo. Someone weighed as much as 300 pounds, and that was her security guard, who at the time when the crash hit, I believe there was 3 people that were still alive and later died basically from their injuries or on their way to the hospital or died at the hospital. So no one really survived in this situation. It wasn't even on air for that far out, right? Like it nosedived. That's what it sounds like. I pulled the factual report from aviation. This is from one of the investigators. And I know that it's one of the investigators because I was able to match the name. And this is just a little brief narrative of it. On August 25th, 2001, at about 1845, so that's a 24-hour clock. Somebody do the math, subtract 12 from 1845, and that will give us the exact time that 6:45 daylight time. There was an aircraft registered, operated by Black Hawk International Airways. Okay. Crashed shortly after takeoff from runway 27 at Marsh Harbor Airport, Bahamas. A VFR flight plan was filed, but not activated. The airplane was destroyed. The commercial rated pilot and 8 passengers were fatally injured. The flight was originated at the time of the incident and destined to Ocala, Florida. Anyways, airplane was seen lifting off the runway and then nose down, impacting in a marsh on the south side of the departure end of runway 27. The baggage from the airplane was removed and weighted. Okay, so when I read this, I think, all right, so was it after the accident that the baggage was removed and weighted?
Is that why they wrote that in there? The total weight of the luggage, fuel on board, and at the time of the accident, plus the weight of the passengers, showed that the total gross weight of the airplane was substantially exceeded. Preliminary center of gravity calculations show that the center of the gravity was significantly outside the flight envelope past the center of gravity. All right. Preliminary information indicates that the pilot was not approved to act as a pilot in command in the accident aircraft under 14 CFR Part 135. So the owner, Mr. Gilbert Chacon, I believe that's how you say that, has only communicated to investigators through his attorney, and has not produced any aircraft or engine logbooks. The complete maintenance history of the plane is unknown. The engine and timeframes were torn down and examined at the Marsh Harbor. No discrepancies were found. The propellers will be shipped. Okay. 9 fatalities, pilot and 8 passengers. There is a lot that is omitted from this report that they just kind of pull. They give us the pilot information. It's kind of like his resume. I'm not really sure. So his name, and I believe he was from Puerto Rico. Yeah, Puerto Rico, Luis Antonio Morales III, 30 years old at the time. And so they give us a nice little log. Now, the allegation is that he wasn't licensed to fly, okay? Was not licensed. He was not supposed to be flying this aircraft. That's what we're being told. They give us a little synopsis of his resume in terms of hours and training. They talked about him possibly faking and or forging his pilot license. That's another factor that came on later on. But again, it goes back to this is a little small aircraft. So then who or what, like who failed to kind of keep up with this stuff, right? Why wasn't this looked into, his references, and then come to find out that, he had drugs in his system? Did that impair him and his capability of making sound judgment, decisions, such as the engine is making a weird noise, like the article told us? Would he have heard that? Would he have stopped? Even though people might have been pressuring him to hurry up and let's go, okay? It does kind of make me wonder, are you going to fall for pressure? You're the pilot, right? You're taking these people, okay? You determine, you're supposed to weight this luggage, and again, just thinking out loud of what were the other playing factors that would have allowed someone of a sound mind to make a good decision about whether they're going to fly an aircraft or not, right? They don't really talk about there being a failure in the engine here. They talk about just like the last inspection of the engine, the overall conditions. So they look into that, the anomalies, discrepancies, the propellers. Where I want to go is they go back and they really do drag the pilot, okay? But they also, let me see how far, here it is. Root cause, this is where they really put it on the pilot, but that it also exceeded the amount of its weight. There were some witnesses here, but they don't name them. Witnesses reported that 2 of the largest passengers, weighted approximately 300 pounds each, were seated in the cabin. Okay, so there was an issue with the weight distribution. I believe one of those passengers was her bodyguard. Just letting you guys know. I mean, I think the guy was like 300 pounds. I believe his name was Scott, and he also died later on. And so then I sit here and I'm like, well, this is all like, okay, I get it. There was an issue of weight, but then underlying causes of the accident. And this is where I really just think about, okay, so now you have the root cause, then you have underlying. All right. So current maintenance status at the time of the incident was unknown. All right. So they weren't servicing or didn't service the plane. Witnesses reported hearing aircraft engine backfiring and running rough. Okay. So remember the article? Funny noises. Was that on page 27? Was that like funny noises? So there were witnesses, but nobody like, hey, don't fly, don't go because your engine's making funny noises. I don't know. Witnesses also reported pilot had a hard time starting the engine prior to departure. Okay, well, that would have been a sign, right? I mean, those are just kind of factors, but if you're not in sound mind and if you're under the influence, okay, then I don't know, that maybe that's just another thing that just didn't quite play out the way it needed to. Nobody stopped it. Nobody did anything. Aircraft performance may have been greatly reduced on takeoff due to the temperature of the day. The weight distribution, okay? So those are just things that they look at. People and human factors. So this is where I was like, all right, we're going to get to the people part, right? The people part. Passengers were in a hurry to depart. Passengers' urgency to depart may have led to the pilot not completing required documents. Okay, so when I read this, I think about passengers were in a hurry. Who said that? So I know that this was reported out there, but there's a lack of information of the people that are involved or should have been involved, or people noticed that they wanted to hurry up and go. But like, who actually noticed their urgency? And that's the piece that we don't have. We don't have any written. And if we have the witnesses, that information is not there. Pilot did not exercise command and allow passengers to influence him to taking all the luggage and persons on board the aircraft. Now, mind you, I remember that they couldn't take all the luggage. They had to leave luggage. I remember that was something that was said, written somewhere. We might have to look into that a little bit more. So did they not leave enough, weight back? Like, I'm curious to know why that is being said there. But again, this was written back in 2000, submitted 2006. So this is a pretty old report. I just feel like it fails to really kind of give us a nice picture of who, the what, and the where. And maybe on purpose, because a lot of information is not in this report, such as the witnesses, such as the other, sides to this. Here we go. Pilot falsified qualifications on the type of aircraft. Okay. Falsified the logbook on the type of aircraft. Pilot may not have followed manufacturer checklists. Pilot may not have followed normal operating procedures. All right. Pilot failed to follow manufacturer guidelines. Okay. As well as regulations regarding the maximum minimum takeoff or weight performance limitations. And then it talks about the drugs was detected in the urine of the pilot. Okay. And so then the man had drugs in his system. But my question is this, guys. If the new report is that Aaliyah was drugged, okay, she was drugged to be taken. They did an autopsy on this pilot. They found all this stuff. If she had been drugged, or unconscious, taken to that plane, would that have been something they would have found in her system? Right? Like, that wasn't reported when she passed. There wasn't anything about drugs in her system. And they talked about how they did an autopsy on her. And they even said, and I quote, she had a weak heart. So when I read this, I'm very sketchy about how the findings and the conclusions, right? They said that she had a heart attack. Yeah, I think I heard somewhere to the effect of she wouldn't even have survived the impact because her heart was pretty weak. That's what I heard. I just don't know if we know enough. So yes, the pilot was unqualified. We know this. He falsified the documents. People were overweight. They had too much stuff in there. The weight disproportionality was a huge factor. I get that. But now we have these new allegations and we're going to move on to that. The problem that I have with this report is that so much crap is omitted. Okay. I want to know about witnesses and I don't see here because now we're bringing up a new name, right? We're bringing up a new name. And I can't find it. I only got 21 pages. Jaguar Wright, she had made several allegations and or statements about Aaliyah. There were three things, as I'm showing them in these bubbles, okay, that was just very evident. I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit more, see if I can zoom in more. Hope everybody can see it. Here we go. Three statements, okay, that was very, very important statements and we need to pay attention to. Aaliyah in a hurry to see Damon Dash, Aaliyah in a hurry, and Aaliyah's team in a hurry. And so my thought was, well, how do we find out if any of these three things have any validity? How do we know if any of these things are true? What do we have out there to find out? So what supports do we have to show these statements? Any articles, statements, videos? Well, I thought this was interesting, this Aaliyah in a hurry to see Damon Dash, because the only reason why I remember this video why I even remember that statement as well was because of what Jaguar Wright said. So we're going to watch that right now. You guys are going to hear it. If you have a pen and paper, take some notes on this one, because there's several things that are said in this clip that, I mean, it's like one layer on top of another layer of top of another layer, and we're needing to confirm this information. Let me add that clip to the stream.
So in 2021, Jaguar Wright had made a lot of allegations about Aaliyah. Okay. I'm unaware whether she knew Aaliyah, but based on the allegations that she made in 2021, it sounds like she might have. I'm not really sure. So this was a clip that I had included on one of my other videos that I wanted to include here, because this was one of the things that I wanted to look at. Listen, according to Jaguar Wright, she's been at Diddy parties. She has saved 3 victims from Epstein Island. What else? You know, y'all fill in the blank, because she's been everywhere in the industry from the time that she is said. I'm just saying, what she said here was very much incorrect in my opinion, but y'all might support her and like her, and you might believe everything that she says. But let me go ahead and play this.
Like I said, it's not my story to tell, but it should be told by her brother or by Dame. Y'all need to know how amazing she really was. Y'all need to know what she really overcame. Y'all need to know the strength that came behind all of that sweetness and all of that grace. And she was tough. Survived the stuff that she survived. She was tough. And nobody knows the real story. Yeah. Aaliyah's untimely demise changed a lot in my mind. I was angry at first. Why is she so stupid? Why would she get on that plane with all that luggage? Why she gotta be so vain? The luggage could have came later. As much money as she had. But see, what nobody really got told about that story, and it's only been mentioned in a few documentaries, is that the reason why she was in such a rush to leave the island was because someone had called her and told her that Damon Dash had been in a nearly fatal accident, and he was on his deathbed, and she had to rush to Miami to be by his side. That's how much she loved him, and she was willing to put her life on the line for it. See? If somebody called me and told me that my husband was about to die, I would do whatever I got to do to get there. And from what I was also told from other people that was on the shoot, packing all that luggage on the plane wasn't her idea either. She was told, because the rap, the video had rapped, that all of their belongings had to leave right then, that she couldn't leave them behind, that nothing, they had to take everything with them, knowing that there was already almost 1,000 pounds worth of human on that plane, and then like 800 pounds of luggage. They said, well, if you got to go right now, you got to take all your stuff with you right now. And she was willing to risk it just to be with Dame. And I believe Dame, in the interview that he had done maybe 5 or 6 years ago, he said he never sent that phone call to summons her to Miami. He never had his assistant call her for any reason, and he wasn't even in Miami. Aaliyah got a phone call that the love of her life was about to die in Miami, and he wasn't even in Miami, and the call came from his assistant, which didn't exist either. And Fatima, the choreographer, heard that phone call because she mentioned it too. She got a phone call from a person that wasn't real about a situation that had never happened, being summoned to a place where her fiance was not, and forced to leave with all of her belongings if she left right there, which would put the plane in danger. I don't know, but where I come from, that sounds like a setup. Like the pilot was a crackhead, a former crackhead, and even he, the crackhead, didn't want to go along with it, but he was told that he had to because he was under contract. Somebody went through a lot of trouble to make sure that that girl got on that plane, and that plane, like I said, it's not my story to tell. But I'll be damned, there's a lot of people that benefited from Aaliyah being gone. A lot of people made it that wouldn't have made it if Aaliyah was still around. And I'm not so big on the idea of conspiracy theories, but typically the way I see things is if you want to know who the masterminds are behind something, all you have to see is the person who benefits the greatest. That's the person that has the most motive to make sure people get moved around, the person that has the most to gain. In this business, that could be anybody. On the wrong day, it could be everybody.
I need to know, how many statements did Jaguar Wright make in that 6-minute clip? How many statements did you guys hear? Because I heard at least 4 or 5 different ones, okay? One of them was what is it? She was rushed to leave the island because she had gotten a call from an assistant that Damon Dash was on his deathbed. That was the big one. She also said that this information was featured in several Aaliyah documentaries. And she also said that Fatima, who is a choreographer, overheard the phone call and spoke about it once and never spoke about it again. Okay? So, one thing she said that in a documentary specifically on Damon Dash about 5 to 6 years ago, that Damon Dash had said he never made a phone call. His assistant never made a phone call. That this never happened. So I'm just trying to figure out, well, okay. Did somebody call and say that he was on his deathbed? Whether it was Damon Dash or the assistant. Okay. And did Fatima overhear it? And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I have not found one ounce or something, a resource or something that would give validity to what Jaguar Wright is saying in that clip. So here's the deal with Fatima. There were people that left that day of the incident, and there were people that were scheduled to leave the following day. So when she's talking about they finished that day in the contract, they couldn't keep their stuff behind. No, that wasn't the case. I'm going to show you just information in terms of how we kind of came up with this information, with this conclusion. So the thing is this, is Jaguar Wright is saying a lot of stuff in that clip. Now, this clip is about 10 months old, okay? Around this time, she was going about the internet, making explosive allegations about people, certain celebrities, everything, okay? So my thought was, well, all right, so where do we have it? Where do we have it that Fatima was there and heard the phone call? Where do we have it? I don't see it anywhere. And why? I guess let's just say conspiracy theory, okay? Let's say that Aaliyah was set up, okay? And if Fatima said something, she would be in trouble. Let's just say that that's the case. All right, so she has kept quiet for so many years, right? Who else knew about that situation? I'm just going to throw that one scenario out there. But one thing that I do know, and this is based off of what we have so far, okay? And let me see if I can blow this up. Here we go. Our questions or statements. Aaliyah in a hurry to see Damon Dash. Jaguar Wright said that. Aaliyah in a hurry. Aaliyah's team in a hurry. What do we have to support any of this? Well, let's look at these clips that we have here. One of the things that I talked about in the very first live regarding this situation was the aircraft incident report. Okay, this was released when they did the investigation, and there was something that caught my attention in this report. Passengers were in a hurry to depart. Passengers' urgency to depart may have led to the pilot not completing required documentation. So, passengers in a hurry to depart, right? Passengers' urgency to depart may have led to the pilot not completing required documentation. So, in this report, it has a factor listed into what aided to the accident. This was one of them. Someone said that people were in a hurry. Okay, so research. Here's another one very quickly. Remember when I pulled that article almost 20 years ago from the local newspaper, free local newspaper? There's a paragraph in there. There's a paragraph in there that caught my attention. And it's this one. In the very first page, which somebody emailed me about it, and I sent that PDF copy to that person, and hopefully they're able to use it, and spread the word. This paragraph right here says, there is no indication that any of the luggage was weighted before it was loaded on the plane. And there are varying reports of arguments between Aaliyah, her entourage, and the pilots overheard by the baggage handlers at the airport. In any case, the plane took off from the runway at 6:50 p.m. and crashed immediately after takeoff. Now, that right there doesn't say anything about people being in a hurry. It does say that people were arguing, right? At least that's what I'm capturing. But the report here says that people were in a hurry to depart. And I'm thinking that if that's what it says, so much so that they couldn't complete the required documents, that pilot did not exercise command and allow passengers to influence him. He allowed those passengers to influence him on taking all the luggage and persons on board the aircraft. So, there's that paragraph. And there's that report. Okay, so now we're going to show you a clip. And this clip is from Damon Dash himself in his own words. And let me tell you something. Damon Dash has done several interviews, has done several responses, has done several commentary about the situation. He was on, what is that therapy show a couple years ago that they took off the air. He was on that show and he talked about Aaliyah being a loss in his life, being very integral in his life, okay? A source of trauma, losing her. And he talked about his biggest regret being that he did not stop her from going on the plane. I'm going to play this, and then you tell me if anything that what Jaguar Wright said makes sense. I have two other clips to show you, but I'm going to show you Damon Dash right now.
Well, there was no chance that if I was there, we would have been on that plane. You know what I'm saying? So it would have never happened that way. Aaliyah and I was in Miami, and she was shooting a video in Miami, and I was in Miami with State Property, and she was going to do a record with Freeway, and Hype had decided he wanted to take the video to the Bahamas, and my son had a football game, and I had to go back to New York for court, and I had all my nephews with me as well, because I used to roll with them, because I'm a single father. And I had my son Boogie since he was 8. You know what I mean? I had to go to court and get him, whatever. So my whole world kind of revolved around him. So I broke out to go back to New York. She told me she was going to the Bahamas, and I was against it. Like, yo, don't go. And then down to the last, we had the Blackberries, down to the last Blackberry that we had before she went there, she was like, yo, I don't like that plane. And I was like, don't get on it. And she was just like, I got to do it. It was, it was a complicated situation, but she had to go do that video. So, if I was there, I would have made sure that that jet that was supposed to be for her, the G4, she would have been on that. I wouldn't have got on that plane. You know what I'm saying? So it would probably have been different. But, everything happens for a reason, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And you just got to deal with the cards that life.
So, he says in there, he talked to her. She did not like the plane, didn't want to get on that plane, told her not to get on. If you heard him earlier, right, that she came back because they weren't going to meet up. She was meeting up another person to work on a CD. Well, back then it was a CD remix, demo, whatever at this point, to a song. And I believe it was more than a woman that she was working on. She was trying to make it into a remix. Okay. So they weren't even going to meet each other, but Damon Dash told her, don't get on. Don't get on. They talked about the Blackberries. You know, back then that was the phone, the Blackberry, right? They were going to meet up at some point. This was an unexpected tragedy. Okay. And in many videos and interviews, Damon Dash has confirmed that he talked to her before she left. Okay. So this is where I go back to Jaguar Wright. Well, was there an assistant? When did the assistant come in? When did the car accident happen? Right? That Damon Dash was on his deathbed. If that's what happened, right? He said so himself. He told her not to get on. He didn't want her to get on. She was going to be working with some people. They weren't going to meet right away. Okay. There is someone that sent me an article that I was like, this is interesting. And I'm going to share it with you. This little article right here. And why I like this article is because the date. The date is very telling. Here is a music producer, okay, by the name of Just Blaze. So this was published on October 25th of 2012. So Just Blaze was supposed to be working with Aaliyah. Blaze recalls that Aaliyah was scheduled to work with him and Freeway, but that their collaboration was never done due to the tragic plane crash. When Aaliyah died in the plane crash, she was on her way to meet me and Freeway to do a remix, More Than a Woman. She had left her video shoot. I guess it was in the Bahamas, I think, he told Fuse. We got a call saying she just got on a plane. She'll be in the studio in an hour or two. Then 20 minutes later, 20 minutes later, people are on the radio saying that she died. We didn't believe it because we had literally just got off the phone with her people. We got confirmation a few minutes later that it was true. Rest in peace, Aaliyah. Super sad.
She was on her way to come meet me and Freeway to do a remix to More Than a Woman. She had left her video shoot in, I guess it was in the Bahamas, I think, and we got a call saying, she just got on a plane and she'll be at the studio, in an hour or two. And then 20 minutes later, people on the radio saying that she died, and we didn't believe it because we had literally just got off the phone with her people and got confirmation a few minutes later that it was true. But the remix that we were doing, the break came from that Moonrakers record. Rest in peace to Aaliyah. It was super sad.
She wasn't in a hurry to go and fly to go see Damon Dash on his deathbed. I don't know if there was a phone call. I'm not sure if Fatima said that, but let me tell you, aside from Fatima, the choreographer, you also had other people that were there. There was a total of 58 overall people in this crew, and some of them decided to leave that day, that tragic day, and then others were going to leave the following day. They were still doing work, but Aaliyah was done early, so she was able to leave. No one has said that Dash was on his deathbed. No one has confirmed that Dash got a freaking, an assistant and called, or he said that call never happened. I don't know. I have not seen it. But yet, this is something that was produced by Jaguar Wright, statement-wise, and we have nothing to support it. Now, the only way to support that is say that Fatima, the choreographer, says, yes, I was there. I was there. But see, if that was the case, if 20 minutes is the time frame, that this article says from 2012, well, when did the call to the assistant happen? When did the pill happen? You see that pill that we keep talking about that she had taken, right? That supposed pill?
I remember it clearly. The thing is, she had a major headache. And she was on the phone with her boyfriend at one point. She told him that she didn't want to get on. I heard the conversation, but it's like not all of it, but I knew she didn't want to get on the airplane because it was consistent on getting on the fucking airplane. Aaliyah went and took a nap for 30 minutes. Whoever her people were that was with her, her entourage or her managers or whatever, they gave her some pills. She passed out in the backseat of the van. The next time Aaliyah woke up was when it was time to board the plane, bro. Everyone on that island went out there to go look for that airplane, bro. Because we knew it was too much weight. Too much weight on that little ass plane. And whoever made her get on that plane, bro.
She was drugged? See, if she's on the phone, could she have been coherent enough to like have a conversation? Now, I'm just throwing this theory out there. This is all a theory, okay? And again, I'm going to show you another clip.
Were you supposed to be on that plane?
No, we were all scheduled to leave the next day, but she was ready to go home, so she decided to leave early. And so we had just really finished shooting. The sun was about to set, and Hype, the director, Hype Williams, basically said, you can leave because we're just going to get some kind of aerial views of the girls. And so she decided to head home early. And I'll never forget that last moment where they brought another boat because we were in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. And they brought a boat to come meet her and to take her entourage away. And we were all like, hey, can we get a picture? We just want some pictures. And she was like, you guys, we're going to do the Grammys. We're going to do the American Music Awards. We have all these awards to do. We'll get the shot then. And we were all like, okay. And she got on the boat, and that was the last time we saw her.
Nadine Ellis is another name. So Nadine Ellis was one of the dancers, okay? She went on the Wendy Williams show, did an interview a couple years ago, and she talked about that she was one of the dancers, that she wasn't going to get on the plane. She was set to go on the following day. That name, Hype Williams, okay? Hype Williams, and I named him earlier on that video clip with Damon Dash. He was the video director, okay? He was there, and if you look at the Rock the Boat, the making of the making that they did, you'll see him there, and you'll see a lot of the dancers, people that have passed away, the whole production crew, you will see them there. It was a 4-day event in this island, okay? So there was a lot of people. The problem is that even in that article from 20 years ago, okay, people didn't know that there was a celebrity in town. They were very shocked in the community that this had happened to Aaliyah. So it was a surprise to everyone. No one had the clue. Now, and your comment, the pill. If she had a phone call with Damon Dash, was it before or after giving the pill? That's the piece that I want to know. Somebody from the Aaliyah team called Just Blaze and told them 20 minutes before the plane left, right, at least, because this accident happened very quickly. You see, the plane nosedived. Somebody called this team because she was headed that way. She was headed that way to meet with him, not with Damon Dash. She was not going to meet with Damon Dash, right? Let's listen to Damon Dash again.
Well, there was no chance that if I was there, we would have been on that plane. You know what I'm saying? So it would have never happened that way. Aaliyah and I was in Miami, and she was shooting a video in Miami, and I was in Miami with State Property, and she was going to do a record with Freeway, and Hype had decided he wanted to take the video to the Bahamas, and my son had a football game, and I had to go back to New York for court, and I had all my nephews with me as well, because I used to roll with them, because I'm a single father. And I had my son Boogie since he was 8. You know what I mean? I had to go to court and get him, whatever. So my whole world kind of revolved around him. So I broke out to go back to New York. She told me she was going to the Bahamas, and I was against it. Like, yo, don't go. And then down to the last, we had the Blackberries, down to the last Blackberry that we had before she went there, she was like, yo, I don't like that plane. And I was like, don't get on it. And she was just like, I got to do it. It was a complicated situation, but she had to go do that video. So, if I was there, I would have made sure that jet that was supposed to be for her, the G4, she would have been on that. I wouldn't have got on that plane. You know what I'm saying? So it would probably have been different. But everything happens for a reason. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and you just got to deal with the cards that life.
Dash's statement has been very consistent throughout the years, guys, when he's been able to talk about this. I would say someone said it on the chat, and I'm going to put that comment on the chat. You're on the money on this one. You see, let me tell you something. When I was looking at Hype Williams, I'm trying to figure out how often he talks about Aaliyah. And I can't find anything that really gives any validity to, maybe this has been a very traumatic situation. But I'm trying to figure out why Aaliyah is not an accolade for him. Why this video is not an accolade. I mean, I guess it's out there. I just feel like as invested and as well-rounded of a man that Hype Williams is in this industry, you would think that Aaliyah would be someone that you would want to make sure people knew the work that you've done with her. So I'm just wondering how deep or was there anything preventable in this situation? I definitely think this accident was preventable. And I wonder how much of his production company, his people know about it. So those three things were running in my head, okay, about her being in a hurry. Damon Dash wanted her there. The entourage wanting to leave. And there was an argument and people heard it. Clearly this, article from 20 plus years ago says it. The aviation report says it, that there was an argument. There was something going on. They needed to take off. I'm not really sure. Okay. But people stayed behind the day after. They didn't have to leave that day. People stayed behind or they went early. When you listen to this clip from this Kingsley guy, I'm going to play it and I want to see if anybody feels like it sounds a little bit different from everything else that has been said from all these people.
Aaliyah came to our country. She had a certain taxi driver, my stepmother, Louise McIntosh. Alright? That was her taxi driver. And I used to do baggage, carrying the bags for people at the airport. Man, Aaliyah is an awesome person. But that incident that day, she didn't want none of it. She didn't even want to get on the plane. I remember it clearly. The thing is, she had a major headache. And she was on the phone with her boyfriend at one point. She told him that she didn't want to get on. I heard the conversation, but it's like, not all of it, but I knew she didn't want to get on the airplane because the whole weight situation. Everyone in the airport was saying the same thing, but no, the people that was with her was consistent on getting on the fucking airplane. Aaliyah went and took a nap for 30 minutes. Whoever her people were that was with her, her entourage or her managers or whatever, they gave her some pills. She passed out in the back seat of the van. The next time Aaliyah woke up was when it was time to board the plane, bro. Everyone on that island went out there to go look for that airplane, bro. Because we knew it was too much weight. Too much weight on that little ass plane. And whoever made her get on that plane, bro,
everybody sued everybody afterwards, guys. Outside of Aaliyah, and I had said this before, it seems like there was more to a lot of what happened and who said what, and looking into like investigating that even deeper. Hype has been very quiet. It could very well be because he chose the location of where this shoot was going to happen. It could very well be because he and his team did not look into the baggage situation a little bit better, or someone from his team decided, allegedly, to go ahead and give the okay for her to fly without the bags being weighted. Now,
the aircraft actually got off the airstrip, but not having traveled over beyond the airstrip, because shortly after it took off, it took a left bank and ditched into a swampy area just about 200 feet off the runway.
While investigators sort through the wreckage of Saturday night's devastating plane crash in the Bahamas, friends and family members of a production crew and their pilot have to go on knowing if they hadn't changed their flight plans, they would still be alive.
We dropped them off in Treasure Key, and then we were scheduled to pick them back up on Saturday.
With that same aircraft?
Yes, ma'am. And on Saturday, we got a call and said that they weren't complete with the shoot at this time, and that they actually wanted to be picked up on Sundays.
But 9 of the roughly 40 people Sky Limo dropped off decided to return a day early and chartered a flight with a different company, a significantly smaller plane that Bahamian investigators say may have been overloaded.
One of those things of fate that, if she'd been on this plane that next day, maybe this all wouldn't have happened. We all wouldn't be here, but no telling why. And we'll all have to wait, I'm sure, for the reasons as to what happened with the other airplane.
When the twin-engine Cessna crashed, witnesses said it rolled hard to the left after taking off and fell almost straight down. There have been unconfirmed reports that the pilot, Luis Morales of Fort Lauderdale, may have questioned the amount of cargo and passengers to be loaded, and that's one of the first areas investigators will look into.
One thing we may discover that we can determine the weight of the luggage, which may help the investigators in determining whether the plane had an overload.
The crew that perished in the crash traveling with Aaliyah was scheduled to come back to South Florida on Sunday with the charter company Sky Limo in this 15-passenger plane, which can carry up to 4,500 pounds of fuel, passengers, and luggage. But for some reason, Aaliyah and her entourage chose to leave on Saturday afternoon in the smaller Cessna.
We feel very terrible about what happened. It was, obviously a terrible tragedy. One of those things of fate that, if she'd been on this plane that next day, maybe this all wouldn't have happened. We all wouldn't be here.
In New York City, a mural was made Monday in remembrance of the young R&B star who many said had an unlimited future. But 2 of those on board were from South Florida. Bodyguard Scott Gallen lived in Pompano Beach, and pilot Luis Morales lived in Fort Lauderdale, not far from his parents. Morales' father says his son visited him just a few weeks ago and constantly spoke of the joy of being a pilot. The crash investigation will take time, and officials will reconstruct what's left of the wreckage and take into account the cargo and witness statements that say the plane may have lost one of its engines on takeoff from Marshport.
One thing we have to know, guys, is when we look at Aaliyah, when we look at the accident, we can't just say the plane crash, right? And this happened and people were arguing. Some of the things that we've been talking about before was, well, what Jaguar Wright said, what other people said, who else heard what, the newspaper from 20 years ago. But one thing that we have to really look at is before the accident, what happened before the accident? Okay? Because we need to determine is it an accident? Was it preventable? Who was there? Who saw what? And the good thing about now time has passed, we have a lot of information out there. We're going to look at the complaint that the mother, Aaliyah's mother and father, filed against the airline. Okay, not just the airline, but a couple of groups. And we're going to look at those. We're going to look at an investigation that the Time magazine did with back in like shortly after the accident, because I think a lot of what the Time magazine is saying back in 2001 actually matches to what the complaint was. And I really like having at least access to the complaint, because now we can really look at what is factual. Now, we have to make sure I let you guys know this first. There was a complaint that is sealed, okay? That complaint that is sealed, that no one has access to, is the complaint against Instinct Productions, LLC, okay? So Hype Williams owns that, at the time owned that company. That information is sealed. But when you start looking at least one complaint, you start to figure out who was at fault and what exactly happened before the accident. And this article, which is titled Haste, Errors, and Fallen Star, you can Google search it, pull it up if you want to follow along, because I think it really does bring about the information that seems to be what is factual at that time, what led to the accident. Someone called this accident. Someone said someone was going to die. Okay? People are going to die. This did happen. Someone did say that. And even the article on the bottom, which we'll see, pilot recalls warning staff, this is what kills people. We're going to look at that. So before Aaliyah boarded onto that plane, before all the dancers and everyone else, this was very much said, this is going to happen. I'm going to show you how we were able to determine that, okay? Now, I want to show you some names, because this is, you guys, I'm telling you, this is what I call the ADHD process map for me, okay? All of these names, and let's see if I need to, I'm going to try to make sure everybody can see this. All of this actually means something. I'm going to tell you what it is, because these names are going to come up as we're looking at the times. Here you have Barry and Sons, aka Black Round Records. We know that that was Barry and Jomo's Hankerson's company, okay? Just heads up. And I put a plus sign here because it kind of helps me know that there was a relationship between Black Rounds and Instinct Productions. On the bottom, as you can see, the company names are bolded. The names of the people that represent those companies are under it. Okay. So from here, we know that up here, these arrows are telling us that they entered into a contract. This was for the Rock the Boat music video. Okay. On August 20th, 2021. All right. So these guys were friends, or not friends, but a contract. The plus sign signifies a relationship, a contractual relationship. It really kind of tells you, at the very least, what to look for. Okay. When you look at Instinct Productions, Hype and Chris, these people were in charge at the time. I did the little, back and forth arrow, right? So Atlantic Flight Group, okay, was they were under contract with Instinct. And so they were setting up a lot of the flights for their celebrities and everything. Okay. You have the founder, and then you have an executive under here. These names are going to come up. Okay. And so then you have the arrows that go down. Well, Atlantic was managing a lot of the flight stuff for Instinct. Okay. But under the order of Instinct, Atlantic would move. So if Instinct called Atlantic and said, hey, I need you to fly and do this, X, Y, Z, transfer these people everywhere. Okay, that's what they would do because they were under contract. All right. So here we go. Atlantic, this is them. And we have 3 arrows under them. Okay. We have Sky Limo 24-hour pilots. Sky Limo 24-hour pilots. Then we have Black Hawk Internationals, the charter company. And then we have the ProHeight Cargo Service. Okay. So all of these names are going to be very important because Black Hawk International Airways owned the plane, not owned the plane. They managed the employee, the pilot that died that had cocaine in his system. Okay. His name was Luis Morales. And then you have StreamYard Aircraft, Cessna. That's the actual plane. This was lease and loan to Black Hawk. All right. So then we have Florida Air Motive, which is the agency that fueled the pilot. That name's also going to come up. So you're going to see a lot of different names. A lot of different names. They're going to come up. A lot. So I thought it was fair at the least give you this visual. You guys can see it as we're working at the times. And we're not going to read the whole thing, but we'll review it. You'll be able to see who played a what role. I hope at the very least this is helpful for you guys to kind of see how one person is connected to the next. When you start getting to know these names and then you actually start looking into who sued who and why they sued each other and who and what recuperated and who made money off of this situation, it all starts making sense. Now it makes more sense to me and we're going to go through it as to why someone like Hype Williams doesn't talk about Aaliyah. Okay, because he was sued for wrongful death. A lot of people were sued. They sued Atlantic and they sued Instincts. Okay, and we're going to talk about the moving hands. Who made the call and who did what? But if I'm telling you guys that someone foresaw this situation, someone foresaw this whole situation and didn't use judgment, I mean, Aaliyah could, there would be no Aaliyah subject to talk about today. That's how sad it is. All right, the name of this article, Haste, Error, and the Fallen Star. It was written sometime in September 8th of 2001, okay, or at least released around that time, all right? And this article to me jumped out, number one, because someone by the name of Truth Seeker emailed it to me. And it was one of the articles that I feel like in doing an investigation for a journalist really did stick to what was factual and supported by either the court paperwork that we've seen, okay? So here we have a plane crash, telling us what happened that killed Aaliyah, following a decision by the officials managing her travel not to use 2 professional charter services with planes nearby, and instead to rely on a small charter company. So earlier on the clip, guys, when we play that video, there was a man that was in there talking about that they had done the deal with them and they were supposed to board. There was another plane that she was supposed to leave. Well, that man is one of the men named on that list of people there. Okay, so he's saying, you know what? They were supposed to leave on this day. It was supposed to happen on 2 professional charter services, right, with one of us, and they decided to go with the smaller company. A reconstruction of the days leading up, and this is what they did. They reconstructed the whole thing. The days leading up to the crash at the Bahamian island of Abaco suggests a disorganized and confused error to set up the filming of the video for Aaliyah. So early on, guys, and I mean a week before the travel, it was crazy disorganized. Okay, so much so that you had planes flying to the wrong side of the island. That's how disorganized. So what happened was Aaliyah on the 21st of August, 2001, she was at 106 in Park. Okay, she did an interview. You can Google search and YouTube this. That was her last interview that she had before she left to the Bahamas to shoot for this video. She was sitting on the couch. She was in all white. And why I remember watching that actually. She was in all white. I remember this because she was also doing the contest with the Cadillac and the money. And there was going to be like a lucky fan that would win the Cadillac and the money. And I just remember what she wore because it was all white at that time. So this was one of her last interviews was with 106 in Park. Okay. And she said in that interview that she was leaving tomorrow for the Bahamas, tomorrow being the 22nd of August, to finish up the music video. They had already done some dancing for it in Miami. So they were just going to leave and finish up whatever other, parts of the video they needed to do. She said that's what was going to happen. And then that sometime the music video would have been released in September. Okay. The Rock the Boat. After that, that's when she left to the Bahamas. She left on the 22nd and arrived that afternoon. Okay. So, and again, this is actually accessible. Feel free to look that up. You can look it up on YouTube. Google 106 in Park, Aaliyah's last interview, and you will see, and she will confirm how she was going to leave the following day to the Bahamas.
Now, your album has been out since mid-July, and it's been doing so well. We got to
Thank
congratulate you on that.
I have to thank all of you guys for that. Thank you.
And we need a resolution disc. So good on the countdown. And we got to know what the next video is, and I hope you're saying it's a song I love.
Yes, it's Rock the Boat.
Yes.
It's Rock the Boat.
Yeah. Now, when can we expect that?
I shoot the video tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And that video should be out, and we're hoping like beginning of September.
I can't wait.
We're actually doing singles back to back. We're doing Rock the Boat first, then we're doing More Than a Woman. So we got them coming back to back.
What a sexy song.
Okay. So from there on out, there was a lot of confusion from the week before. Okay. It says that on the flight there, an official from the cargo company that loaded the plane said the managers who supervise the travel were warned that their attempts to overload their aircraft could lead to disasters. The plane they finally used for the planned return flight to Miami, twin-engine Cessna 402B, was flown by a pilot who was not certified to fly that aircraft. Okay, that pilot that was not certified to fly that aircraft was employed by Black Hawk International Airways. And that pilot was Luis Morales III. He's the one that died. And because he flew that and he was being managed by Black Hawk International Airways, the director, the boss, right on top of him, his name is Gilbert Chacon. And Gilbert basically violated a federal law because of that. Luis Morales III, this was going to be his first flight. This was his first flight from this company. He had been let go from other companies. This was the first time he was going to fly this little jet craft. Did not have the experience, and he was flying this jet craft, okay? And the person that hired him was Gilbert Chacon. And Gilbert, having a shady past of his own for fraud, either overlooked or decided not to pay attention to Luis Morales' background, who also had some charges with cocaine and whatnot in his history. Okay, so some of this is like, all right, cool. Their way in which they ran the company, that's interesting. But you got to remember, guys, something. Atlantic Flight Group was the one that organized the whole situation. They organized who was going to do they coordinated everything. But who hired Atlantic Flight Group? Instinct Productions. So, Instinct Productions, who's Instinct? Hype Williams. Let's keep going. So then the plane was operated by Blackhawk, a charter company whose head, Gilbert Chacon, had a criminal record for fraud. He had pleaded guilty in 1993 to bankruptcy, fraud, involving another charter service. There is no evidence, however, that the managers were aware of Mr. Chacon's background. Managers, meaning Atlantic Flight Group. They didn't know who they were contracting with. They were just doing a contract, right? Not sure. I don't know. So the accident killed 9 people. The hairdresser, the bodyguard, Aaliyah, the record executive. At the time, it was being investigated by the Federal Aviation Administration, as well as the National Transportation Safety Board and Civil Aviation Department of the Bahamas. So from there on out, we're going to go here. These people didn't need to die, said Eddie Golson. Eddie Golson is a name that we brought up earlier in our little slide, okay? So keep that name in mind. The owner of ProHeight Cargo Services, which handled the cargo shipment for the video in the Bahamas. This all could have been avoided if they just followed the rules. Okay, so when I read that, I was like, what do you mean? What rules? I'm not a flight expert, guys. I don't know anything about that, right? So I'm just thinking in my mind, what didn't they follow? Travel arrangements for Aaliyah's music video called Rock the Boat began a little more than a week before the crash. According to the pilots hired for the project, the production company, Instincts Productions, had scouted 3 locations for the filming, 2 in the Bahamas and 1 in Jamaica. Bad weather led the group to decide on Abaco. So the travel was arranged by Atlantic Flight Group. Remember, they were the middle ones in our slide, and we'll go back to that in a bit, based in Miami, which serve as a flight broker coordinating the other cargo and charter services that owned and operated the planes that were used. Okay. And of course, at the time, both Instinct, Hype Williams' company, and Atlantic, the company that Hype Williams hired, declined to comment, right? They weren't going to talk to an investigator. Of course not, especially with the Times Magazine. So one of the first calls, and it takes us back to that time, who called who and what? One of the first calls was placed to Sky Limo Air Charter Inc. All right. So Sky Limo operates a pretty big facility. Okay. And they maintain a wide array of aircraft. They have pilots that kind of stand by for 24 hours. We have the president right here, Tom Conlon, president of the company. All right. So then we move on. The day before the cargo, including costumes, videos, and other equipment, was to arrive to the Bahamas. The day before the cargo, including costumes, video cameras, and other equipment, was to arrive in the Bahamas. Mr. Golson at his company received a call from Atlantic asking his company to handle a shipment to the Bahamas. He said he was told that the cargo would weigh no more than 6,500 pounds. All right, this is where it gets interesting. We have an actual weight. Remember, we went back and forth on what actually caused the accident, which is, what was it, the cargo? Was it too many things? What happened, right? Here we have some pounds. We have some numbers. During the first call, Mr. Golson said he was pressured to bend the rules. He was pressured to bend the rules under federal regulation. All cargo must be weighed before being loaded on a plane so the pilot can be sure that the aircraft is properly weighted and balanced. But in the first call, Mr. Golson said he was urged to eliminate that step. Okay, do you guys remember who called Mr. Golson? Because he was urged to eliminate a step here. He was urged to eliminate a step, which is weighing the cargo. The filming for the video had begun in Miami on August 22nd. All right, so we had established a timeline. Aaliyah was on 106 in Park, August 21st. She had her interview there. She said, yeah, I'm coming over here. I'm shooting this video. So she got there on the 22nd, and 10 other had flown to the Bahamas the previous afternoon, August 24th, on 2 flights using a Fairchild Metro 3rd chartered through Sky Limo. The director of the video was Hype Williams, a renowned music video director who is the head of Instinct. He did not return repeated calls for comments. Of course not. All told, 58 people were working in the Bahamas on the video, and the cargo was needed to complete the filming. Okay. Based on the weight estimated given by Atlantic and the other company, arranged for a single plane to carry the equipment to the Bahamas and was set to start out from one of the airports near Miami the next morning at 8, when Mr. Golson had been told the equipment would arrive, but nothing. All right, so I'm already seeing like a cluster of who did what time was the equipment supposed to get there, and it didn't get there, but nothing. Instead, the cargo arrived 3 hours later, along with several people overseeing the shipment, including Harold, an executive with Atlantic. We said that name out there. And a man who told Mr. Golson he worked with Aaliyah. So Harold works with Aaliyah. but he's with Atlantic Flight Group. So I'm not really sure if he was just name dropping or what. Again, Mr. Golson said he was pressured not to weigh the cargo. And then he says, Mr. Golson says, they kept trying to get us to load the plane and go. And Mr. Golson says, I told them that if they didn't want to weigh it and they didn't want to do this our way, then they needed to find another service. Good job, Mr. Golson. Good job. Because let me tell you, this would have been a setup for someone like him. Who knows? Who knows what would have happened? So as the discussion continued, Mr. Golson said that the group was joined by Chris, a production coordinator with Instinct Productions. At that point, Mr. Golson said he explained in detail the dangers of an overloaded plane. Finally, the executives agreed to allow the company to follow standard procedures. So I'm going to stop right here, guys. In the matter of this time frame, okay, they're deciding how the cargo is going to go, who's going to load what. They're going back and forth on this. And they're telling these companies, skip this step. Skip this step. The cargo weighed in at almost 15,000 pounds, more than twice than the original estimate. Okay, so we went from 6,500, right? This is what they told that it was, to now 15,000 pounds? 15,000 pounds. Twice, guys. Twice and more. So that is ridiculous. And then they're being told to skip a step. So then Mr. Golson said he realized that an additional plane would be needed for the shipment and began to arrange for 2 more. At that point, a call came on the cell phone on one of the executives arranging the travel. A charter service carrying some of the people who would work on the video had landed on the different side of the island, but no one else was there. Okay, the charter plane, the executives suddenly realized they had flown to the wrong place. Oh, wow. The shoot was not in that area as everyone had originally been told, but in Treasure Key, about 120 miles away. So a second charter plane from Sky Limo was already headed to the wrong destination. The executives promptly tried to contact the pilot. Okay. And they were given a call and they were redirected. All the necessary flight paperwork had to be redrafted, indicating the change in destination. This apparently, it annoyed everyone. And it was a level of incompetence. Mr. Golson said he began to criticize the executives from Instinct and Atlantic. Instinct and Atlantic. Remember, Instinct is the Hype Williams video production company, okay? Atlantic was who he hired to do all this booking for the travel. So before the airplane crashed, we're already seeing all these craziness, right? Flying to the wrong side of the island. What if they not had any fuel? What if they had run out? Like, nobody really thought about that. And I'm curious to know, how do you prepare for something like that? Because you're going to like 2 different places. I don't know. Wrong spot twice. 2 different planes given the wrong weight. He says, I was frustrated at that point. What are you guys doing? He said. I told them this is what kills people. This is how accidents happen. But it went right over their heads. So somebody said this to them. Mr. Golson, the man that has experience in cargo, especially for the celebrities, when they're doing videos, films, movies, all that other stuff, that was foretold. This is going to kill people. So then you have Michael Kestner, the president of Atlantic at the time, said that neither he nor anyone in the company could comment on the events surrounding the trip on the advice of their lawyers. Of course not, because you don't talk. You're not going to talk to the Times. But in a written statement, the company said it would afford the highest level of cooperation to the government agencies investigating the crime or the crash, excuse me. Again, Mr. Novella, which is Chris and Instinct, they got their own lawyers. They stopped talking. At 2 p.m., the cargo was weighted and loaded in Florida, and the production team was asked for the paperwork registering the equipment with customs, which is required before cargo can leave the country. But no one in charge of the video had filled out the forms, leading to another 2-hour delay. By 4 p.m., most of the cargo had finally shipped to the Bahamas. So as you can see, guys, a great way to organize this stuff, right? It was almost like people were just passing the buck. You didn't do this paperwork. You didn't do this paperwork. And you didn't weigh this. And so a level of frustration would very much be warranted, right? Just saying. That night, Sky Limo received a call from Atlantic. He already had planes lined up for the next day, Saturday, to begin ferrying people from the video back to the United States, beginning at 10 a.m. But he said he was told by Atlantic that there had been a series of unavoidable delays. His planes, which could carry large numbers of passengers, would not be needed until Sunday. Do you guys remember in the clip when we played earlier, who was the man that was talking there? That's him. Because he's the one that said, hey, listen, we had planes ready to go, but then Atlantic called us and said, hey, we're not going to need those planes. Will not be needed until Sunday. All right. So this is kind of how things went. This planned thing. All right. So despite the chaos that preceded, the video filming went well. It was very organized. One of the best. A makeup artist said that. Okay. And this makeup artist was supposed to board the plane, but stayed behind to finish working with the remaining dancers. You see, not everyone left. It wasn't just 9 people. There was a lot of people that were working on this music video, guys. Not everyone left. She stayed behind. Someone else went in her place. And he died. So by early afternoon, it became clear that Aaliyah had some of her staff would be able to fly. Okay. After the 4:30 call, a call was placed to Blackhawk International Airways, the small charter company operated by Gilbert Chacon. Okay. So this is where Blackhawk comes in. So the way I see it is Atlantic Flight Group calls Blackhawk. Hey, do you have a plane? So about 9 people can leave. It's got to take some cargo. That's what I'm envisioning this, right? An associate, which is the same one that works from Instinct, who refused to be identified, said Atlantic definitely made the call and that Instinct did not know the name Blackhawk and was unaware that the group carrier had changed. So suddenly, Instinct is saying, I didn't know that there was a change. Who's Blackhawk? Well, if Atlantic Flight Group is the one arranging everything, why did Instinct then, how did this little misstep happen? How did the communication occur here? Because it's really this paragraph alone confuses me. Somebody called somebody and didn't tell them, hey, we need a small plane, or maybe they did. I'm not really sure, but they weren't supposed to. Was it Instinct or was it Atlantic? Because now here they're just pleading the fifth at this point. Who was at fault? Right? Who was at fault? And everybody lawyer up. Get your lawyer. Don't talk to anybody. Right? So Blackhawk operated a small twin engine plane. Both Sky Limo and ProHeight had far larger planes nearby. So there were larger planes nearby. But you know what? It's Hawks, baby girls. They still knew that the cargo weighed too much. So even if they had larger planes, would that have made the difference? You see, they're trying to bypass the step of weighing stuff. They were trying to do that when they were leaving, when they were going to the Bahamas. Clearly, they had to get 2 planes. What about when they were coming back? Were they cutting corners in this situation? Well, let's keep reading. Both executives said, however, that no one from the production company or Atlantic tried to call them that day. The reasons Blackhawk was chosen are unknown. Oh, we don't know where Blackhawk came from, guys. That's what that tells me. Though a smaller plane would have been less expensive than the other options. Okay, I love this sentence right here because I'm trying to understand. If my company is a flight group and I arrange flights, I'm thinking I'm a seasoned, I know how to deal with celebrities and whatnot. This is what I do. Okay. How did we then determine that something would have been less expensive? Right? I don't know. So the reasons Black Hawk was chosen are unknown. Though the smaller plane would have been less expensive than the other options. Okay. Well, of course it would have been less expensive. Wait, right? I'm assuming so. Black Hawk did not have any legal approval to operate a charter service in the Bahamas. Oh, one violation. Okay. It had been co-founded by Mr. Chacon, whose fraud conviction resulted from his attempt to take assets from an earlier charter service he operated, the Caribbean Express, after the company fell into bankruptcy. And all of that is supported by his lawsuits that he has in his background. That is all out there in public record, and you guys can check it out. He has a lot of bankruptcies in different states. I don't know how you can file so much bankruptcy, guys. So he co-founded this with his son, this company. I was able to determine that as well. So we looked into that. So after the accident, they called the prosecutor's office to figure out who handled the fraud case. And the defense attorney for Mr. Chacon didn't give any comment or anything, right? Because it's probably two separate matters. However, it shows his level of indecency, his willingness to say, well, I'll hire just about anybody, especially someone that has no experience and that did not pass the drug test. Or did you even give him a drug test? Leaves into question that, right? So, according to the pilots in Florida who know Mr. Chacon. Now, this is where it gets into Mr. Chacon's own background, his recklessness when he's flying. I mean, the man did not really know how to really fly. I'm not really sure how the hell he did. He nearly clipped the wings of another plane when he landed at a small airport in Florida. That's Mr. Chacon, the owner of Black Hawk International Airways, right? The head that was over Luis Morales III, the man that flew the airplane that killed everyone. And then when they did the autopsy, Luis Morales had cocaine in his system, in the walls of his lungs and everywhere. So we keep going. Okay. So the calls were unanswered. Black Hawk has been closed since the accident. A person answering the phone at the law offices. Okay, so he got a lawyer. He lawyered up. Everybody got quiet. Everybody blamed everybody, guys. Everybody blamed everybody at this point. Mr. Morales had been hired by Black Hawk days before, and this was his first charter trip for the company. Yeah, his first trip was his last. He had jobs with several charter companies, had been dismissed as a pilot from Golden Airlines in Florida days before failing to appear for work, employees said. So we see a little bit about Mr. Morales' background. I mean, Mr. Morales pleaded no contest to a charge of cocaine possessions just 12 days before the crash. Well, maybe that supported the cocaine in the walls of his lungs and all that other stuff that was said in the reports. Okay, so he's been charged with cocaine. It wouldn't surprise me if he had cocaine in his system 12 days before the airline crash, right? Interesting. So from here on out, passengers were growing impatient. And this is the guy from Instinct, told associates that the plane was to arrive at 4:30 and it did not appear until after 6:15. What happened at this point is unclear. There have been reports that there was a dispute between the pilot and the passengers, or between the ground crew and the pilot, about whether too much weight was placed on the plane. And Instincts has insisted to associates that no one said anything about the weight. That's what instincts insisted to associates. No one said anything about the weight. Wait a minute. I'm having like a crazy moment right here as I'm thinking about this. But didn't what's his name? Mr. Golson. Didn't he say he was told to bypass a step? Right? So somebody wasn't truthful. Somebody's trying to defend themselves. Somebody said, you know what? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Didn't happen. That right there, when I saw that, I was like, yo, I had an aha moment. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If we look at the complaint filed by the family towards these people, and we're going to see that. We're going to check the names again because it's going to help us kind of look at the names. We've talked about the names a little bit in this article, okay? But from here on out, let's see. I don't want to lose my place. What happened at this point is unclear. We talked about that. In any case, 8 passengers were loaded into a 10-seater plane along with their luggage. No one checked the weight and balance of the plane as required by federal regulations. Even passengers are supposed to be weighted and their weight distributed. However, experts said that the plane was almost certainly weighted too heavily towards the back, where 2 large men, including Aaliyah's bodyguard, was seated. At about 6:45, Mr. Morales taxied the 2 twin-engine Cessna down the runway. Okay. There was a pilot that lived in the area that saw it take off, and I believe he's saying here it took less than a minute, and it was a heavy blow when they hit. Mr. Sawyer also volunteered firefighter, and this name comes up a lot. I have done some research on this person right here. I mean, he was one of the volunteers. There were several volunteers, guys, and the trauma that these volunteers saw, because you got to understand the certain portions of the plane went into flames. The bodies were ejected. Okay. Like, I can only imagine having to help in the cleanup of that. Like, that just sounds like a very traumatizing situation. Not only that, trying to figure out who's alive, who's still breathing, trying to help out. Mr. Morales was found dead in the cockpit. Only 3 passengers were still alive. All died by early the next morning. And Mr. Chacon disappeared, right? Went away. This Owen Gasaway, we talked about, well, he's in our list too. He actually was the one that fueled the plane, okay? He fueled the plane that they took. So he told me, Owen, that fellow knew how to fly that airplane. He'd been checked out. So this was communication between Mr. Chacon and Owens, who said, you know what? He told me that the fellow knew how to fly in that airplane. He been checked out, whatever that means, right? What does it mean? Does it mean that his background was checked? Drugs? Past violations from 12 days ago? Historic? Something? So we haven't heard anything from his lawyer, and that's been very surprising. People lost their lives in this accident. I would have expected in a case like this for the owner to come forward to assist as much as possible. No, I wouldn't have expected that, because everybody lawyered up. And of course, this man's going to go in hiding. I mean, it's his company, right? So this was back, Time Machine 2001, guys. This article is still available and very informative, but it does give perspective into who's really like to look at. Who should we look at? Who should we blame? Who owns the responsibility? Who should have been sued? Who and what? We're going to look at these names real quick. Refresh our memories. Here we go. These are all the names that we talked about, went through. Okay. Barry Hankerson and his son didn't come up. They didn't come up. However, one of the things that I was able to establish, and this was based on a complaint, actually an appeal that Barry Hankerson, his company tried to sue Instinct Productions, Hype Williams, okay, in New York for wrongful death. The court basically said, no, it's dismissed for several reasons, several factors. Number one, we don't have a relationship. Okay, so basically you see this plus sign, it didn't exist. Our friendship isn't necessarily a business relationship. They made an argument of that. And also, they dismissed it because in New York, a wrongful death can't be of a third person, meaning it has to be parents, kind of direct person. Barry Hankerson and Son are third persons. Barry Hankerson and Son decided, you know what? Aaliyah was our principal asset. I'm coming to sue you, Instinct Productions. And they couldn't. They couldn't even demonstrate that Aaliyah owned any percentage of the company. So it was a very kind of like way to see, all right, so how they handle that lawsuit. But what we do know is that there was a contract at the very least that Barry Hankerson and Instinct Productions entered on August 20th in order to do this little rock the boat video. We go and see how Instincts hires Atlantic Flight Group. These are the names that were named, Michael and Harold. Okay. Atlantic has phone calls with Sky Limo and Eddie Goldson. Okay. Eddie Goldson's the one telling him, I'm not cutting corners, guys. I am not cutting corners today. I'm going to do my job. This is how people get killed. He's the one that said it. You're going to get people killed. Sky Limo was the one that arranged for the bigger flights, the bigger planes. They were supposed to leave on a certain date. It didn't happen. He had pilots for 24 hours, bigger planes. And I'm sure, as we've discovered, Aaliyah didn't like small planes. So, Atlantic hires Blackhawk International, okay? Gilbert Chacon, Luis Morales. Luis Morales is an employee of Gilbert Chacon, okay? What did Owens Gasaway said? Gilbert told him, that Luis checked out. He knows how to fly that plane. Okay. The aircraft was leased. It was a loan. They didn't even own it. As you can see, guys, it was very, very important for me to kind of like put these names together as a visual, because when you're reading that Time magazine article, it goes everywhere. It goes everywhere, right? This is a complaint, okay? And there isn't a whole lot to say like, okay, we're going to read the entire thing. I have some notes about this complaint. And this is a complaint submitted by Aaliyah's family against Atlantic Group. We talked about Atlantic Group, Blackhawk International Airways, Skystream, and Gilbert Chacon. Okay, so all of these are kind of different entities, but when you read the Times and you start kind of looking at that map that I did, you start to see who played a role in what and why they were being sued for what. Okay, number 10 in this one kind of really told the story. This is a complaint. This is what the family is alleging, basically, that these people did. The crash of the subject aircraft and the resulting death of Aaliyah were approximately caused by the negligence of defendant Blackhawk International Airways and Chacon by and through their offices, agents, employees, and servants, in that defendant Blackhawk and Chacon breached their duty and failed to properly operate and maintain the subject aircraft with due care and caution, failed to provide air charter transportation in a manner that's reasonable, calculated to ensure the safe completion of a subject flight. Okay. Failed to ensure the subject aircraft was safely configured and appropriately loaded. Failed to train and instruct the pilot of the subject flight regarding the safe operation of the aircraft, including the calculation of maximum takeoff weight and center gravity requirements. Negligence in hiring, investigating, obtaining the qualifications. Remember, he wasn't qualified to fly that aircraft. He had never flown something like that. Okay. Then we go down here. The dangerous and unsafe configuration of the subject aircraft as used for the subject flight and inadequate training and experience of the pilot, and the failure of defendants to exercise the level of care appropriate and reasonable for the subject flight was approximate and legal cause of the death of Aaliyah. That's a lot. That is a lot. Yes, and let me give you that filing date. I'm sorry, I should have done that before. Here we have. I don't even see the date. Where's the date? Where's the date? Where's the date? Let me see. I don't think it's listed. No, but that's the docket. August 27, 2002. Yeah, no, I don't think I have a date on this. And even the print from the clerk is very fainted. Yes, thank you, It Talks Baby Girl. If you're interested in looking at it, you guys can Google search it as well under this civil number and year and all that other stuff. It should be able to pull it up. You might get more of a review if you do it on Google than an actual kind of legal document, but this is the legal document. So I will tell you, this is one. So the family did the lawsuit against these people, okay? But they also sued the company. This was separate, and this is the part that's sealed. That Hype Williams sealed, and I'm thinking it was either Hype or whoever, because it actually involved, I mean, the 8 people that died on that plane, they also came after these people as well. Don't get me wrong. But the complaint that's actually sealed, the one that I'm sure everybody would want to get their hands on, is the one that involved Instinct Productions. Okay? That's the one that's really probably going to be very telling. And they did settle out of court. It's very interesting, this whole situation. But, okay, moving on. So from here and on, let me see if I can pull. Let's see. So from here and on, I'm going to see what else is very telling in this situation. So they kind of went after them for negligence. Well, they went after them for negligence, wrongful death. Okay. It's about 3 counts total. Death and survival of damages arising out of the death of Aaliyah against Atlantic Flight Group based on negligence. Would it be crazy to tell you that they had to file for bankruptcy after that lawsuit as well? I mean, it was a little bit of a craziness right here, as well as the other people that had to file. I mean, it was a lot of lawsuits in different areas for damages and whatnot. In here in the general allegations, it's just the time of death. They even say that it could have been prevented. This could have been prevented. Right? And so when I hear articles and statements, especially now that you know how these players, who was what, really does tell you a little bit about the cutting corners was huge. Okay? The cutting corners was huge. People cut corners here, guys. Everybody did. They tried to hurry up. They didn't weigh the stuff. They were telling these professionals to not weigh their stuff. Okay? One of them had to tell them, listen, if you don't like how we do shit, then you move on with your business. Right? Move on with your business. Thank you. And this is the name of the lawsuit. Okay? This Virgin, hey, It Talks Baby Girls, this Virgin Records one is the one that's sealed. This is the one that we can't get a hold of right here. Just a heads up on that one. Let's see. What else? I mean, this is it. It basically tells everything, but I think that the Times Magazine, the article from 2001, which doesn't have a whole lot of editing and or updates, really does tell you how terrible this whole situation was. It's good to know what led up to, like, before the accident, right? You want to know what happened, right? Like, who did what, who said what, because then it puts everything into play of like, all right, I guess I'm just I will determine what opinion I'm going to make from this, right? I'm going to determine if, if this is a conspiracy, right? I don't know. Let me look at your comments. And by the way, we did drop, thank you, It Talks Baby Girl. She put the link on the chat. Thank you. Yeah, this is the one that's available for the public to view. You guys can view this one. The other one with Virgin Records, that's the one with Instincts. That one's not available. Barry and Sons with Instincts. Now, mind you, again, we had talked about this. Barry Hankerson attempted to sue Instinct Productions. That one didn't go well. That is also available out there. But this other one up here, what is it? This one's the one that's not available. Okay. And yeah, good luck getting your hands a hold of any of that, because I was sealed, very well sealed. Okay. With respects to the family and whatnot. Okay. So heads up on that. Go see what Hype Williams says about Aaliyah. Notice how he doesn't have her in any of his accolades. So when I was looking at that, that was one thing that stood out to me. And then it all makes sense. Well, because he was sued for wrongful death, him, by the family, and the other people as well. So there was so many, he wasn't going to do anything. And then there was a relationship, or a quote unquote relationship, right? Between Barry Hankerson and Instincts, okay, with Hype. All right. So then I'm thinking, well, did they cut corners even more so with the people that they hired in contract? Don't worry about it. Don't weigh the stuff. Just do what you got to do. Very bare minimal. It is what it is. So, I mean, this girl was failed.
I think it's important, and I'll say it again, that Aaliyah was failed by a lot of people. Even her own people that were supposedly taking care of her when she was taking this plane. People failed her all around. This airplane crash was something that was so preventable, right? She didn't have to die. So when people ask me about Aaliyah, even now, even though I've done deep dives 3 years ago, and it's interesting to put all this information together and package it for you guys now, I always go back to that, is that look at who was sued, look at what was said, look how shady people are acting after the lawsuits, such as Hype Williams. He doesn't even mention Aaliyah anymore. He went probably because he was sued, right? Look at how people maneuvered throughout the industry after her death, and pay attention to what happened before her death. What led up to the events, who was there and what. You're always going to have people that will come on the internet and say all kinds of stuff, right? But for me, I'm always going to default to, was there a lawsuit? What are the facts? What happened? To make sense of what is tangible. What do we have in front of us? Now, I know because we're dealing with the industry, not everything is in front of us. You know what I mean? Like, not everything is something that's like, presently in front. And so it does invite for situations like Aaliyah was set up. Aaliyah was absolutely set up. Aaliyah was absolutely a victim in the industry. Aaliyah was absolutely being looked after people that didn't really care for her, that saw her as an asset, as a piece of money. So that is why she is a victim of the industry. Let me show you guys what Damon Dash said in 2021. And this is where Lenny Kravitz.
She was shooting a video in Miami. Yep. And I had my son and my nephews with me. And, she was very supportive. She particularly liked Freeway, his voice. And she was supportive of anything I was doing. She was like, while I'm in Miami, I had the state property down there, which was a group. Yeah. And she was going to do a record with Freeway. So I was like, all right, I'm going to come down there. I'll check you. I'll bring the kids, make a vacation, work, the whole nine. So when we got there, Hype was making this video. And I was like, I know Hype. I just got off of Big Pimpin', where I had to cut the video. You know what I mean? Because he likes to spend bread. So I was like, he's going to make you do another day. Don't do it. Trust me, it's just so he can spend money, And sure enough, she came home that day, and I had a big house. I rented this house, and she's like, I'm going to, there. And I was like, I just thought that it wasn't necessary. I knew that was going to happen. And then when she actually saw the plane, she, we had the Blackberries, and she said, I don't like this plane. And I was like, well, don't get on it. And she's like, well, I got to because I got work to do. She got on the plane, and she always had a very serious fear of planes in general. So she had to overcome a fear to get on that plane on the way there. But what I was really more tight about was that I had heard that Lenny Kravitz had offered her a jet, and that Hype had took the jet. So that's what really pissed me off about the situation when I heard about that. So you could ask Hype about that.
That's what I said. Have you ever talked to Hype about it?
Yeah.
And how did that conversation go?
Ask him.
But I also am asking you.
Yeah, but ask him.
I feel like you had some things to say to him.
Because of my respect for Aaliyah and her family, her music is just coming out, but everyone's very respectful of her memory. No one really speaks on it, because that's the circle of people she had around her. So out of respect for her memory, I don't say a lot of things.
Tell me about that day. Where were you?
I was getting my hair cut, and I was waiting for her. So, she was trying to get back really quickly because we were trying to see each other. So she was like, I'm gonna get on the first thing smoking. And that day I waited in the house and I was getting a haircut, and when they told me that there was a crash, it was her mom that told me, and they said they didn't find all the bodies yet, so they didn't know she was still alive. But for me, I was like, so it's a wrap. So I hadn't finished my haircut, and I took all of her clothes out of my house and everything, and I went to go see her mom. because I just didn't want to be triggered. I was not embarrassed to cry about losing Aaliyah, and I'm still not. But I cried hard in front of people that thought I was weak. I mean, I still had to get myself together and fight because there were things that were going on.
We actually have video of you. You're at her funeral where you're very emotional.
Yeah, I told you.
Remember that day? Remember that day?
I don't revisit it often because it hurts. So it's not like I visualize it, you know, so much. I see pictures sometimes. But a lot was going on in that moment.
There's a report that to get on that plane, she may have taken something. There's a new report out.
Yeah, I read it.
What did you think about that?
I didn't really think about it. You know, it's like, what am I gonna do? The difference doesn't make at this point.
You also said that her death, and then your mother's death shortly after, it changed you. It turned you into a monster.
Yeah. It made me fearless. Because I know what real pain feels like and I've dealt with it. It can't be nothing worse than that. There's a couple things that are a little worse than that, or up there. But overall, if it ain't that, then I'm not really concerned. And you know, death can't be so bad because you're gonna be with the people you love, so it makes you not fear it. So there's no fear. It made me fearless. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not scared of anything.
Thank you guys for watching this. A lot of what I'm reporting I've already shared before and put together. If you really stayed here in the chat for like the 2 hours of this video, well, shout out to you. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Rabbits out. Bye, guys.